Let me tell you about a fanfiction that I decided to read one fateful Thursday at 2:45 in the AM.
Let the demonetization process begin!
Some of you might be familiar with fanfictions. The gross, the foul, the cringe, and the mind-numbingly stupid of them, but angsty fanfictions are not something that people often refer to when they are referring to the curious abyss of that part of the internet. Allow me to enlighten you on the subject.
Honey, you've got a big storm coming.
Published December 21st, 2009 at a whopping 96,993 words and coming in at a total number of 21 chapters, Prinzessin by fanfiction.net user Edward and Bella Forever is the alternate universe story of Courtney and Duncan from the popular Canadian cartoon Total Drama Island. But this is not your average plucky fanfiction wish fulfillment. Oh no siree. It is not. What you have to understand, dear sweet, innocent, uninitiated viewer, is that oftentimes a writer will choose to pluck certain characters from their canon universe and insert them direct into somewhere where they do not belong whatsoever. And such is the case with Prinzessin. It's set between 1943 and 44, during the high wartime in Germany-occupied European nations. Specifically, it's set in Nazi concentration camps. Prinzessin is the story of, well, I'll let the author tell you all about it herself. Courtney and Duncan in the times of the Holocaust. Courtney is a Jew and Duncan is a German soldier. Not your average DC Holocaust story. Read and review.
What? What the fuck?
Not your average DC Holocaust story. And I must ask, how many Duncan Courtney Holocaust stories are there? I must know. So it turns out there's just one. And now what you need to understand, ladies and gentlemen, is that while this is the only Duncan and Courtney Holocaust story that I could find, this is in fact one of, if not the most popular Duncan and Courtney fanfiction on the website in question. Holocaust or no Holocaust. For some reason, people just eat this shit up at 379 favorites, 648 comments, and 157 followers, which are pretty good metrics, all things considered. But what are the commenters saying? That's where the meat and potatoes is, really. It's been years since I've read this fanfiction, and rereading it tonight made me realize once more why I love it so much. Sure, it was angst to the max, but it hit the feels in the best way. The only way I can describe this is using the word masterpiece. I know, saying this story could have had an amazing sequel won't make it happen, but I truly believe that. Honestly, I wish Courtney wouldn't have died in the first place, but you executed the story plot so perfectly that I can't help but have a love-hate relationship with it. I don't understand why I didn't review before, and I'm truly sorry I didn't. I just had to express how greatly I think of this story. I hope that maybe, someday, you do write a sequel for it, or that someone will help you do so, and that Duncan and Courtney reunite with Chana, but having had Duncan care for her. Not like in the epilogue. Thank you for writing such a perfect story. Much love and support. Huh. I just came across this story again and I wanted to comment on how much I loved it. It was almost too real and I remembered every second of it. This story made me cry more than anything else in the world. It was like a week. I haven't even read this story in a year and I can feel myself tearing up like this story should really become a book for mature minds. Those that say it shouldn't be a book because it's about the Holocaust is childish. The concept of this reflected what I feel like could have really happened. You didn't sugarcoat anything, and I love that. This story is easily in my top 5 also. I've read over about 40 fanfictions too, and none of them touched me like this one has. I usually stray away from concept like this, but I sucked it up and continued. Best decision I have made. I just read the whole story, and I'm at a loss for words. This story was, wow, probably the best CD story I've ever read, and probably one of the best fanfiction stories on this site. Wow. It was just amazing. And I think that if you change Duncan and Courtney's names, you could totally get this published. Update soon. Do you have any other CD stories? If you do, I would love to check them out. Smiley face.
I'm Michael Jordan. Stop it. Get some help.
And those aren't the only reviews like that, believe it or not. Which leads me to question, did I read the same story as these people or did I miss something completely? Don't get me wrong, I'm a fan of angst and character death. Yes, I am. But this story was next level angsty death, doom, and gloom. I came away from this story with what felt like severe chronic depression and anxiety, and frankly, my emotions are usually pretty level in all cases, so that was a weird experience. But let me explain. What do you think would happen if you combine elements of Ramsay Bolton's story arc with elements of every Holocaust documentary ever, my dear viewer? This story. You will get this story. This fanfiction is but a fanfiction, only on the virtue that it takes the names of Duncan and Courtney from the source material that it claims to be inspired by. That's it. There is nothing else borrowed from Total Drama Island. Nothing. No one. Zip. Save for these two characters and the canon that is their tumultuous relationship, but that is then dialed up to 11.
Cause you frickin' fricks just can't ever be quenched. Your fantasies can't ever be quenched, can they? You frickin' fricks! When will you learn? When will you learn that your actions have consequences?
So let's just dive into this bitch. We're gonna be all over the place, frankly. My goodness. This is going to be more rant than anything, and I'm not sorry. Let's start this channel off right with a bang, not a whistle. We're gonna start at chapter 5. And, you know, we'll go with it. Trigger warning, because this shit is actually really fucked up. Get that ship to shut the fuck up or you will all pay. Without warning, the guard tore the bawling infant from Eliana's arms, threw him against the wall, and Eliana screamed. I could do nothing but become paralyzed in horror in what was to happen next. I wanted to close my eyes. Anything to escape this damned situation. They wouldn't kill a baby on purpose, I tried to assure myself. The guard smiled mockingly and bitterly, taking his gun out of his holster and holding it to the howling infant. Eliana screamed again, and I covered her mouth with my hand in order to stifle it. She shouldn't get in trouble herself. That is all the intro that you get to this fanfiction, because that was the whole thing. Just rape and murder and trauma, and then, I mean, there were little tidbits of a Romeo and Juliet arc relationship sprinkled throughout that, you know, frankly ends in a pregnancy where Courtney dies. But don't worry about it.
Why you have to be mad?
The kicker here, ladies and gentlemen, is that this fic is decently written. The plot makes sense, somewhat, and they use some of the colloquial terms where appropriate and can be applied. But it's messed up, man. I don't know why I thought a Holocaust AU fic was a good idea for bedtime reading, but here we are. Looking back, all the warning signs were there. It's in the description, after all. A Holocaust AU. It's right there, Weebo. What were you thinking? I have no one to blame but myself. So, back to the story. Life is rough in Nazi-occupied European concentration camps for our Jewish protagonist, Courtney. Who would have thought that? On top of normal Jewish people problems in the 1940s Nazi-occupied Europe, she's got Duncan, a cold and cruel commander of Auschwitz, and all of his special attentions. And it's exactly the type of special attention that you think it is, my dudes. This is going to sound rather harsh of me, but quite honestly, I throughout reading this entire thing, I kept wishing that Courtney would off herself once and for all, so that I could stop being invested in this storyline forever, because mama didn't raise no quitter here. You bet your bones I read the thing through to the cold, hard, bitter end. However, Courtney does eventually try to off herself by walking direct into a gas chamber, but they'd inconveniently or conveniently, depending on what side you fall on in this issue, ran out of gas. Yes. I don't think you heard me, guys. I don't think you understand. Auschwitz had run out of their primary killing implements, so that our protagonist could not off herself. Never in my life did I ever think that I would think the thoughts, those goddamn incompetent Nazis are out of gas, what the fuck? Can't win wars for shit, can't be militarily anti-Semitic for shit when it counts the most. I just want to be put out of my misery, goddammit. Never in my life did I think that I would think those thoughts, but here we are. And what the fuck is wrong with me? So, we learned that Courtney can't even kill herself correctly, nor can she be a Jew correctly, apparently, because, I mean, like, dude, what the hell? You don't just fall in love with the enemy. Hooking up with a Nazi who thinks you're scum of the earth, but who also violates you nightly like a fat boy at a cheesecake factory or an alcoholic at a minibar is not what you do in this situation. Holy hell. You might think I'm kidding. I'm not. You might think she's just doing a whole survivalist tactic. Debatable. Courtney has literally no reason, however, to fall in love with Duncan at all. He's mean to her. He's an asshole. He's a Nazi, holding her prisoner. He thinks that she is literally the shit on the bottom of his boot, and there is absolutely nothing redeeming about him that makes him even a little bit likable as a character. And this is coming from someone whose preferred type of love interest is a bad boy asshole figure.
I work with many very sharp knives, mate, and I know how to use them.
Since I brought him up, let us talk about Duncan now. Duncan, who is just peak levels of school shooter and John Wayne Gacy waiting to happen. Here we are, a Nazi with impulse control issues brought on by a father whose expectations he could never measure up to. For one, if you've ever seen Duncan from TDI, you'd know that that is kind of his character arc to a T, minus the Aryan nationalism, the murder, and the rape tidbits. Least we forget that the cartoon that this fanfiction is based on is a cartoon meant for a younger daytime audience. Nazi Duncan does Duncan in a way that's less charmingly asshole and more so psychotic, self-obsessed control freak. However, because he's a psychotic, self-obsessed control freak Nazi with a crush, automatically he's redeemed in the eyes of the easily led astray teenage degenerate because love conquers all. Am I right? Right. What is the world coming to, my friends? Which brings me to another tangent. What's weird with this fanfiction is that they don't explicitly detail the sexual violence that happens, which I'm good with. No complaints from me. Small blessings. I mean, those scenes are heavily implied in terms of their sexual content, and to be frank, it's not the most explicit I've ever read on this website, so I know that that's not the issue. I've read some pretty fucked up shit on air for you guys because you like to watch me suffer, but that's not the point. We get little to no sexual violence. However, the author will in fact kill a baby right in front of you like it's not a big deal, and I just gave you an example of that. Those are some really wonky barriers you got there, Edward and Bella Forever. Makes me wonder a bit, just a little bit. So, Duncan's violent outbursts are meant to be tempered in our heads by the intermingled sweet moments between Duncan and Courtney. And I say we're meant to, because these are things that we're supposed to hold in regards when we're completely aware that Duncan just sent Courtney's ex-lover to the gas chamber because he's a bit jealous. Or say that moment when he shaves her head because he's mad at her for straying from committing to him and engaging a lover who's not power tripping and molesting her every night? Or what about the fact that he takes her virginity via rape because he's vindictive and a jealous bastard? Yes. Their actual first time together, ladies and gentlemen, because Nazi Duncan's such a sweetheart that he waits to take her V-card until she's done something truly egregious. They do the devil's tangle with only 50% of the required consent. Yeah, their first time together is textbook rape. This fiction's got it all. And if that weren't fucked up enough, after that, we get a completely 180 shift in the tone of the relationship between them, because everything is totally fine between them. They're super calm. They have a great time being forbidden sex buddies together, except with the impending threat of death looming over one of them perpetually. Yep, let's not forget that. Courtney, Duncan, you kids should totally escape the concentration camps, get married, move to the country, plant a garden, and live happily ever after. I'm sure that will work out. Spoiler, it doesn't. A bunch of other stuff happens that's just filler drama, involving some French bitch who's prettier than Courtney and that she's jealous of because Duncan, in some messed up notion of love, decides that Courtney would be better off now in Auschwitz if he left her alone. Which I would agree with if, you know, the first time they'd had sex it hadn't resulted in the conception of a child.
Congratulations! 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 Congratulations!
Congratulations.
Congratulations!
Congratulations. 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 Congratulations.
Congratulations!
Congratulations.
Yes, we have a rape baby, ladies and gents, but that's not the fucked up bit of it. Oh no, they don't realize that she's pregnant until she's 8 months pregnant. Yep, how convenient for the plot and inconvenient for the characters, you absolute plot sadist, you, Edward and Bella Forever. But by then it's too late, because she's too far along to escape and she gets sick, and so she's too weak to survive childbirth, so she doesn't. And then, we're back at taking babies and committing atrocities to them. What atrocities, you may be asking? Why? I'll tell you.
What would you do if there was a child right in front of you?
Shoving them into ovens for good measure, ladies and gentlemen. Because Duncan is so effed up in the head about losing his forcible fuck buddy that he sends his child straight to the gas chambers. Like a dick.
I'm sorry!
And you'd think that'd be it, right? Right? False. because Duncan, well, he dies 3 years later in the next chapter, and he goes to the place where dead people are, and he sees Courtney, and she's super pissed at him in the afterlife. At least so. I mean, he did roast her baby like a Christmas ham, but the kid's there too, and she's been growing. She's a cognizant human being, and she's, I wouldn't say fully down with what her dad did to her, but she rationalizes it in a way that makes it seem like, no biggie, all's fair in love and war, right? So she forgives the fuck out of the fucking fuck who fucking killed her right after being born. It's like mother like daughter, am I right? And as I said, Courtney's super pissed until her own father, who died previously before the events of this story took place, hence we never actually have a real established relationship between them, so we don't actually give a fuck, tells her, hey Courtney, it's totes cool, man. The power of love will prevail. Go be with your little rotisserie child and the man who barbecued her at birth. Woo! But if you thought it was over, and that was the end of it, 1, you're a silly goose, there's no other way to say it, and 2, incorrect, because we have one more chapter and it's a train wreck. Everything that I just said about the last chapter, pretend that never happened. And allow me to set the scene for you. Duncan is still alive. The war is over. He's drinking away his sorrows because he's an ex-Nazi who can't find work. Bummer. I mean, what can I say? After the war ended, they had a surplus of crematoriums and a deficit of people that needed turning to ash. What are you gonna do about it? So Duncan's having a very bad day. He's feeling guilty about murdering his daughter. I can't imagine why. But he sees a 4-year-old girl who looks like his daughter. What? How can this be? What on earth? He thinks maybe I'm going crazy. Yeah, maybe. He follows her anyway, leading back to a house where one of his old Nazi pals lives from ye old war, who just happens to be the midwife who cared for Courtney while she was giving birth in Auschwitz. Dun. What could this mean? And boom. Cue the retcon. The Nazis stole the child just before she was to be booted off for oven duty and days before the Allies so conveniently liberated the camp. Wow, what a coincidence. Who saw that coming? Point is, the kid's alive. Hallelujah. Duncan wants the kid back, so he murders the poor folk, kidnaps the kid, takes her back to his place where he further emotionally traumatizes her, and then he just changes his mind. He lets her go and shoots himself in the head, I think. They never actually really said whether or not he did that, so it could be that we get a third alternate ending to this massively fucked story. But honestly, I don't know if I could handle anything more. I've already used up all of my humor points that I reserved specifically for the use of alleviating stress and sadness in such instances, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, let's cut to the chase. 0 out of 10 stars. This was 21 chapters of emotional trauma and death. No one gave me a safe word to use. Not a single person. I am shook. I hate myself for putting myself through that. Hey, you in the audience. Do you have any fanfictions, movies, books, and or any other medium of media that you would like for me to suffer through? Let me know using the comments section and or using one of the many links that can be found in the description down below.